Welcome back, everyone, to the Disaster Tough podcast, where we share insights into the big plays and right calls of leadership. We dive deep into the stories, lessons learned, and ideas that will help you in the field. Let's go. Welcome back to the Disaster Tough podcast. I'm John Scardina. I'm looking at the bottom of the screen here. Apparently, I was glitching earlier. Looks like I'm doing all right now. Guys, every third episode, I bring up Pete Gaynor. For good reason. He's a great mentor of mine. But as we've been talking about taking professionals into making it a more professionalized field and what a true expertise looks like, and kind of this issue that has arose where everybody's calling themselves an expert, and me trying to steer us away from that to pointing them towards really great resources. I've named several people that they can look towards. One of them is Pete, of course. Referencing his past article that he wrote maybe almost 2 years ago now, talking about, hey, where does the field go? Well, with all of that history behind him, leading FEMA, leading DHS, now at Hill International, he has, of course, his own website that I think just did a relaunch, so it's even more resources and more capability for people. I was like, man, I got to get him back on here. I talk about him so much, might as well let him talk for himself. But as you listen to Pete's and I's conversation today, think about your own position in emergency management, whether you're looking at FEMA from current FEMA lens and you're kind of wondering about your future, or you're in the public safety space and you're trying to figure out, okay, the shifts to FEMA, the possibilities of the shift to FEMA, how does that impact me? Again, I wanted to bring on here a good mentor of mine and a good mentor to the field. And so with that, we'll have Pete come on. Pete, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, John. It's always good to be back. Appreciate the invite.
I like the head turn there. I was
actually trying to shut off this other computer so I wasn't annoyed. So there you go.
Well, I appreciate that. We've had you on here a few times. You've done a webinar with us. You've come to training with us, and you do stuff all over the field. Like, I see all these updates all the time where you're getting out and speaking in front of people. You probably have really great situational awareness of the different concerns happening in the field, but not just the behind the closed door stuff, but as you're talking to other emergency managers, what is probably one of the most common questions you're getting right now? And if you're speaking to the audience, like the field, how do you help them through those big questions that everybody keeps bringing up?
Yeah. The question that I've had for the past 100+ days is what's going on at FEMA.
Yeah.
And so I've devoted a lot of my time to my former organization and to the many people that I still know that are still there, and trying to be helpful in making sure that I think they have to do two things, right? So I think if you talk to any other FEMA administrator, whether it's me from a Republican administration, or it's Craig Fugate from a Democrat administration, or anyone in between, we would all agree that reform is necessary, right? It's been way too complicated, way too policy-driven, way too costly. And is there a better way to do it? And there is. And I think the president is completely right to demand that FEMA, kind of rethink the model it uses to deliver disaster resources to disaster survivors, because it's all about the disaster survivor. So you have to do that, and I think we applaud that. The other part that they have to do is deliver the mission to the nation on the really bad day that's going to happen any day now, right? We're a couple days away from hurricane season, starting 1 June. There's wildfires that are going on right now. Every day is earthquake season. So, it's just a matter of time before something happens. And, whether you're a local mayor or a state governor, you expect FEMA to show up to help you in your time of need. And so you have to do reform, but you also have to be mission ready to deliver what the nation expects from you, because it's the law, right? Until that changes, then this is what it is. So a lot of questions about what's happening at FEMA. And again, I try to be helpful where I can.
How do you spell Doberman Emergency Management? EOP, OEP, HVA, HMP, Thyra, TTX, Drone, PDA. Whenever you need an expert, Doberman Emergency Management field experts are there for support. Contact an expert at DobermanEMG.com today. Yeah, I think, and that kind of models some of the other conversations we've been having as well. Of like, states and locals got to do their part. I was in FEMA, how many years ago, and even at that time, I was like, this process seems because I understand the point of bureaucracy. Bureaucracy has its point, but in response, it wasn't just like red tape that was being cut. It was just like the process of like the expectations, the process, and the outcomes were conflicted, and it seemed like there was a lot of waste. And so, I think it's wise to look at processes and stuff like that. I want to get people to keep their job, of course, if possible. But culture change takes decades, and you have reform that can be a lot faster than that, even though it can be painful in that process. My kind of question that I come back to, and we can talk about finance for a second, because most disasters states should be able to handle, the 3 county flood kind of stuff. But from a politics standpoint, and emergency management and politics are built into it. I heard you say that in person, right? That was in New York, and the um, the thought that I keep coming back to, isn't it pretty good PR for any politician to say, "I'm helping out my constituents. The cavalry's coming, we're here to help." And so it's hard for me to reconcile, okay, what is this the waste of the agency? Like even Craig, like go big, go fast, and we'll figure out the rest, right? All the way through, let's not do anything. And like, wait, but that doesn't make you look good. I mean, look at all the bad press that Bush, Biden, and others have gotten based off of the perceived reactions by their administrations. What would you say to that?
Yeah. So, politics are entwined in every disaster, whether it's big or small, it's just the way it is. I tell people I got my first job in the city of Providence was result of a simple storm going wrong, and politically, it almost uh, um, you know had the mayor almost got thrown out of office. The local emergency manager got fired. The state director got fired. All for this kind of low grade snowstorm that we had back in 2007, and politics will either make you or break you. And so that's how I got my first gig, because it almost broke a mayor, and it broke a couple, emergency managers. So you can't extract the politics out of disasters. And if you're an elected leader, and I think this is, I think part of the thing I'm concerned about, at any level, but especially when we talk about like what's happening to FEMA, the FEMA that the president expects to respond to the next disaster is the FEMA that he has today, right? So with some turmoil, right, and we're already on our second, not even acting. It's the senior official performing the duties of. Unfortunately, Cam Hamilton was fired, and now they have a new, official performing the duties of. It's not what the agency needs right now before hurricane season. Many of the experienced professionals have left. But the point is, FEMA is going to have to respond to a disaster the way it is today, and the government, the citizens, the taxpayers have high expectations of their government, and they expect when they're in need, that when they call the fire department shows up. When they call the police department shows up. When they have this major disaster, they expect the state emergency managers to show up, the logos to show up, and FEMA to show up with all their bandwidth to help them out. That's what the nation expects. So again, you have to have balance in what you want to do. You have to be able to do reform, and you have to be able to respond. And the response part is worrisome lately, right? That and you've seen what's been in the newspaper and public domain, is that even from inside FEMA, they're worried about their inability to either be ready or to fully respond to what may happen.
I mean, you can never overcome time and money. You need time and money to get things done, especially on a scale. And so,
Yeah.
if
Well,
you don't have the time, and hurricane season's coming down, you don't have the money, that's not gonna look favorable. And my issue is that people might use that to say, look how ineffective they are. It's like, well, you're not helping them. You're not allowing them to do their job either. And so there has to be a balance there.
Well, the other thing you need leadership, and you need good morale. And you may need time and money, but you also need good leadership, and you need really good morale inside the ranks of FEMA. And it's not a surprise that the morale inside FEMA is not good. I still talk to somebody from FEMA most every day about some topic, about like what's happening to FEMA. And I usually start. I should have said this at the beginning of this discussion. I usually start these discussions to say that what I know is data points. It's not fact right now. It's just data points, because what you believe to be a fact today will not be a fact tomorrow. So whatever we say today, right? I think when we're talking about FEMA and what's going to happen with them and their mission, it's a data point today. We'll see where the facts finally arrive or live once this is done.
I think that's a phenomenal call out about data and facts, and information changes constantly. There's only one episode I've never aired, and it was a good friend of mine who's a data analyst, and they're very good at their job. But they're a military analyst, and they're like, "Oh, Putin will not invade Ukraine. It's a military exercise." And like the day that podcast, it was like he was just happening, and I was like, "We're not airing that," because I didn't want to make him look bad. At the same time, he was so certain about his data, and there you go. But things change constantly. Careers change constantly. We try to do our part. I've had a lot of friends from FEMA and otherwise reach out to me and say, like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And so we do a lot of project-based work. And so it's like, hey, like maybe I can help you out and get you some projects work over here. But, I think there's, like I said, good, bad, and ugly. Anytime you have talk about reform from the emergency management industry perspective, because it's not just FEMA, right? Like everybody thinks emergency management traditional is just public safety, but there are emergency managers in Fortune 500 companies right now. There are emergency managers at amusement parks, major league sports, whatever. It has really expanded. And I think it's because, honestly, FEMA and the expectation that FEMA is going to respond and the federal government's going to respond. So that started to leak into other industries of saying, oh, project management for disasters is probably something we need at our hospital or otherwise. Do you think that the influence of FEMA changing to be a response and reactionary agency, and maybe funding more on a funding agency, will impact the other realms as well? Or do you think that they'll probably be pretty safe in their jobs?
I mean, it's a really good question, right? How's it going to impact the rest of us?
Yeah.
So I think factually,
there we go.
Disasters will continue to happen. Fact.
Yes.
Right.
Correct.
So it's flooding somewhere right now in the United States. I'm sure there's something on fire in the United States. There's storms and all the rest of it. Right. This is going to continue to happen. So that factually will happen.
Mm-hmm.
How many, how big, how great, how costly, we don't know, but it will continue to happen. I think the goal to shift some of the responsibility to states, I think I'm okay with some of that, right? Because FEMA has become, and this is one of my pet peeves as the administrator, FEMA became the easy button, right? So, and I'm sure I've told this story before, but you would get into this conversation with the local director or state director or someone and say, well, what's your plan for this? And typically the answer is, oh, my plan is to call you.
Yeah,
right? That's my plan.
I put no funding aside. You're going to come and help me out. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, so if your plan is for me to help you, that's not a plan. That's not a plan I can subscribe to.
Yeah.
But you have to have your own plan, your own capacity, and then we'll help where we can, right? And even the federal government is limited in what we can do. So, shifting some of this responsibility back to states and locals, I think, is a wise thing. But it's going to take a very skilled approach to make that work. Every state, every big city, every small city, all unique little snowflakes, right? They all have their own particular requirements, their uniqueness, and you can't treat them all the same. You can't treat Texas and you can't treat Wyoming the same because the capacity is much, much different. So you're going to have, again, I think this is just me, a tiered approach about how you phase in over time, how you phase in responsibilities, more responsibility to states and locals for what they should be doing, right? Just to say on day one, every state, every local, every tribe, every territory, you're going to own, you're going to own a majority of this is probably a recipe for a disaster.
And therefore FEMA can come in. Yeah, I mean, disaster. Murphy's Law is real. Things are going to break, and how much are we willing to deal with the pain of that? I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to, right?
I mean, and it's all costly, right? And again, I understand the administration's goal to reduce costs because it is sometimes it is out of control how much these things cost. I tell the same story. We're paying for Katrina 20 years later. We're still paying for Katrina recovery. Should we be doing that 20 years later? Shouldn't we have a better system to drive a smarter, faster recovery for anyone who's impacted by disaster? I think we should, but taking 20 years to actually and not even complete yet. I mean,
that's nuts,
right? It's nuts the way we do it. So there's some discussion about Congress, the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, who owns the Stafford Act, put out some draft legislation a couple of weeks ago. I think it's called the FEMA Act of 25.
Yeah, I saw that.
And there's some good stuff in there. And one of it is like, hey, we're gonna give you. So I'll just share one of the top lines. It's in the public assistance realm. Is that they're gonna have a new section in the Stafford Act. I think it's gonna be 409, where it's gonna be akin to fourth. And if this is all foreign to you, I apologize.
No, I'm following. Yeah, I'm sure my audience
I know, but
is as well.
To your listeners, Section 428 is alternative methods of public assistance. They're going to have a system like that where within 90 days of the disaster, a state, and I'll just use a state to keep it simple, a state has to do a comprehensive damage assessment within 90 days. Comprehensive.
Wow.
Because the way it's done now is states only do a damage assessment to get to the threshold, and then they stop. Right, and then they'll continue to do assessments as it rolls, and that's why sometimes these things take so long. But you have to do a comprehensive disaster assessment in 90 days. You come up with an estimate. You certify the estimate. You give it to FEMA, and 30 days later, FEMA gives you a check. 30 days later, and the check is for the estimate. And if it's under budget, you get to keep that money. If it's over budget, states you have to eat the overage. Again, will work for every state. Don't know, but when you think about fairness, right? Okay, you're gonna sacrifice something. The president is extremely transactional. I'll give you this, but you need to give me that. So the states are gonna have to give up something, right? They're gonna have to give up the security net of no risk because the current public assistance system is very low risk. They're gonna exchange that low risk for a little higher risk in this 409 section, but what they get back is in 4 months they get a check for the disaster, and then they can go right to work, right? Vice waiting for that money maybe 2 or 3 years down the road.
Sure,
right. So you're gonna have to give up something to get something a little bit better. And again, back who benefits the most out of this? Disaster survivors. So if we can fix an element of our system to make it better for disaster survivors, quicker, faster, less costly, more practical, I think it's a good thing.
Hey, we just want to do a quick pause X to thank all of our sponsors with the Readiness Lab Podcast Network, L3 Harris, Forerunner, C. Bernie World, HQE Systems, Ampapar Response Training Center, Impulse, Doberman Emergency Management, and especially all of you who subscribe to the TRL Insider program and who are listening to this episode right now. Thank you so much for your support. Let's jump back in. What do they say? It's always better to take the lump sum than the monthly stipends for the lottery.
Yeah.
Upfront is better. Yeah. In fact, as you're saying that, gosh, I sure hope they're listening. I'm going to look right into the camera for this. 2017, I suggested using Google data because they have billions of points of data to fly over with drones and to be able to capture the entire disaster scenario in real-time analysis of preliminary damage assessments. So that could have been done in days, and they still use
And they're doing some of that, right? But
with satellites now a little bit, but
yeah,
I
but
mean
it's
Google
coming,
Earth
and
has
it's going to happen. AI
it
is going
has
to
to.
drive it to happen, right?
Yes.
All that data, whether it's from insurance companies or it's from
Yeah.
the taxing authority, all that data is out there to tell you what the value of a house is, value of contents, what it looked like before, what it looked like after. If you go into the 911 database, the 911 database has a picture of every single address in that locale, right? So
Mm,
you have a picture of the house, probably 4 sides from the top. So we know what it looks like. You just have to assemble all the data. So
yeah.
maybe there's an AI engine that we need to apply to all this to make it faster. I mean, it's going to happen. There's no doubt about it. It's going to
I'm going to
happen.
quit my business right now. I'm going to start this AI for preliminary damage assessments and make my millions, I guess. But it's true. I mean, it has to happen, and the data's there. I record a podcast with RSET that's going to come out actually a couple weeks after you, and we were talking about specifically that, like, it's getting to the point of like negligence. Like, there's so much capability out there that at this point, if you're not using any of those tools, it's starting to become like, why are you using a rotary phone when we have cell phones, kind of
Yeah.
thing. And so,
But
yeah,
I mean, to be fair though, I mean, there's sophisticated emergency management programs and there's less sophisticated, right?
sure.
And some of
Duties
those
as assigned in a county for a
right,
fire
and
team.
there may
Sure.
be a one man, one woman EM that owns a county, and they're
Mm,
doing all they can possibly do. And so, you just can't say, you're not doing a good job because you're not using it. It's really about, I think this is one of the things: can the federal government, enable all sizes, all capacity emergency management programs
mm,
to do it right? We were talking before, individual assistance. The only people who do individual assistance on a grand scale is FEMA. I think there's only one
mm.
other state out there that has its own state individual assistance program, and it's Alaska. So
Yeah,
if FEMA
that's
doesn't do
fascinating.
individual assistance, who's doing it? But maybe FEMA can say, "Hey, we're going to develop a AI. I mean, yeah, the other IA, not
IA.
AI, IA system that states
Yeah,
can and locals can use for free to do their own individual assistance programs. So maybe that's the way out. But again, it's not one size fits all in this program.
yeah, and that's the part that's tough. I'm gonna switch topics here a little bit, but only because I get pinged on it quite a bit, and I thought you might be able to provide some good guidance on it.
Sure.
One of the things that keeps coming up to me is like mitigation in the BRIC program,
Yeah.
and how does that all work out? Do you think in once the dust settles, it's going to come back out, or do you think that program is in entirety is a thing of the
No, I
past
think if you
now?
look at the TNI draft bill, the FEMA 25 bill, they have
Yeah,
they have a mitigation section in there.
good.
Um, I think, you know, the BRIC program was approved by the president and
I
the first
know that's what
administration.
Brock, right? Brock changed it to the BRIC
Brock did it, and
program.
I implemented it. I mean, so it's
Oh,
a
hilarious! So it was
approved, by the previous administration. So he killed it. All right. So okay.
he starts
Um,
it, he kills it. All right.
but on the other hand, the administration published an executive order to say we wanted to have this national strategy on resilience, which I applaud.
Hmm.
But one of the legs of resilience is mitigation, right?
Yes.
So I don't know how you have one and not the other. Honestly, I think the uproar on the loss of brick among every state, whether it's red or blue or somewhere in between, has been pretty loud.
Hmm.
Um, I'm gonna make a educated guess to say that mitigation comes back under a different program, different
Hmm.
name, definitely a different name, a different program, and hopefully it's a little smarter, faster than it has been in the past. Part of, and I think this is maybe the administration's, um, heartburn with the mitigation program. Uh, I remember when I left in January 21. and my numbers may not be exactly right, but we had billions and billions of unused, unobligated mitigation money from every state in the nation. There was one state that had almost $1 billion of unobligated mitigation money. And so when Congress says, hey, we're giving you mitigation money, BRIC, to include BRIC, we're giving you mitigation money, but the balance on mitigation is billions of dollars. What's the problem? You really don't have a defense. But part of the problem is sometimes it's hard to get those projects complete because they're complicated. EPA, wetlands, codes, all those kind of things that make those things really complicated. So is there a better way to speed mitigation or make mitigation more practical? Again, so I think if you want a national resilient strategy, mitigation has to be part of that.
Yeah, I can't fathom emergency management and/or the nation's idea of resiliency not including mitigation. It's just not possible. Like, you have to be able to mitigate. We mitigate threats every day on every single level. We should deal with that there.
And on the scale of like what we spend money on compared to like the really expensive stuff, which is public assistance, mitigation, not a lot of money comparatively.
Interesting. Right? Yeah. So it's like the cost benefit, right? Like it's worth it. The ROI is worth it. Yep. Yeah. My one gripe is that every time emergency managers use that phrase of like $1 spent is equals to $10 saved, I kind of I cringe a little bit because I'm like, you're telling a politician who didn't have a disaster yesterday or the day before that if he spends money now in 20 years when he's out of office, that that's going to be a big deal. And quite frankly, I think they're a bit more myopic than that. I think they want to be able to relieve office and not spend the money.
Having served at the local and state level, it's always a challenge to make a mayor or a governor understand about investments in public safety, right? Or emergency management or mitigation. To most elected officials, especially at the local and state level, where they're operating within pennies of their budget, their annual budget, to say that we're going to set aside $1 million or $10 million for mitigation and just have it sit there while we figure out what we're going to do with it, where the comptroller and the administrator of the city or the state is looking at, hey, I need $1 million or $10 million to fill this hole in school lunch program.
Perfect.
For kids. So even though
the school lunch is going to win every time,
right? Yeah. So is there another way to do that? In Rhode Island, I think we have a pretty unique system called the Infrastructure Bank, where you can actually borrow money for projects, and you get low interest rates, and then you can pay it back over time. So there's other ways to do it, and again, I think it's like skin in the game. We all love to spend our parents' money, right? Because they just give it to you. Like my daughter loves spending my money because I give it to her, and so the money that you're going to spend last is your own money. So you always want to spend federal money. You always want to spend state money if you're a local, but you never want to spend your own. And mitigation money is like that. I got my $1 million I need for the school lunch program. I can't afford to invest that in a culvert project that may or may not show an ROI for 10 years, to your point.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge.
That goes back to the original concept of PR. Like the best wins I've gotten is not talking about money or the insurance approach, because that's kind of the insurance approach, is talking about PR. This will make you look good, really good. You're up for another election. You're up for this. You want to get out. And honestly, just your own legacy, like kind of feeding that ego a little bit. I think it's okay. I think the biggest mistake of FEMA right now is that they didn't rename themselves Trump's Response Agency, and he probably would have been all over it and brand it gold. I don't know. Maybe they should give him a Boeing 747, but like whatever it is, I think you have to learn to work in those aspects. And you brought him up a little bit earlier, and I'll just do a call out too for Cam Hamilton. I don't know the guy, obviously, and distance, and I've seen his resume. everybody I've talked to who's interacted with him is impressed by everything he did for caring for the people of FEMA. And, he probably lost his job over it, to be honest, from hearing that from a lot of sources. And I think he's gotten a lot of respect from the field for doing that. I think there were some questions in the beginning about his resume, and then he kind of proved himself to the industry of getting everybody's back. And, hats off to that guy if he's listening in. But yeah.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think he was in a tenuous position from the beginning. Again, it's not like being nominated, right, and then being acting, right. At least nominated, you have the the tip of the hat from the president and the secretary that, hey, you're my guy. You're just the senior guy in the building, and by the way, you're going to be. And he didn't go there to be the administrator. He went there to be one of the deputy administrators for the Office of Response and Recovery Operations.
Yeah.
And he just happened to be the only political in the building on whatever day that was. And he paid the price for trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, I hope history of the industry remembers like that his piece in that, as well. I know some other people that I'm pretty close to as well who are paying the price for not playing stupid politics, and grateful for them. But as we're wrapping up the show here, you mentioned the question that you always get from people: what's happening with FEMA? We're talking about what the state of the field a lot of it, and I think there's probably a lot of people listening just like grateful for the advice and or insight that you're providing them from like the next steps phrase. We're about to get into hurricane season. Wildfire season is kind of year round. Earthquake could happen anytime. Things should change on the dime, including the opinion of the need of FEMA. One of the most annoying things for me is seeing all the people on LinkedIn who have no skin in the game pretend that they have skin in the game. If you were going to give advice to the entire field, myself included, what are some positive things that we can do right now to help ourselves out in this whole process? Because I don't think this field is not a field who likes to sit on their hands.
Yeah.
And they want to do something.
Yeah. So, I think I wrote an open letter a couple months ago to emergency managers, just trying to be steady, right? Don't be reactive to all the things that are happening. You can't really do anything about it. I mean, you can voice your opinion through your elected officials. You can write to council with things that you want to see changed. I say you do all those things, but remember your core mission, right? Your core mission is to provide resources to your community on the worst day that they have. That day may never come. That day may be tomorrow. And so don't get yourself wound up with what's going on in Washington, D.C., right? That will solve it. That will, it's going to solve
work itself out. Yeah.
So I always think, if you try to do all the fancy stuff and trying to, have all the fluff and all the sprinkles, I think I've used this before, right? All that stuff does not last long, like under pressure. So my suggestion is, like, be really good at the fundamentals of emergency management, right? Be really, really good at the fundamentals, because that's what's going to get you through the next crisis, the next disaster, the next emergency. Being good at the fundamentals.
Yeah.
And what's happening in Washington, D.C. does not affect that, right? Only you affect your ability to perform under pressure. I think this will all settle out here, hopefully sooner rather than later. What happens to FEMA? I don't think FEMA's going away. Maybe it gets a name change. I'm not even sure about that. But, we have this thing called Congress, right? And, there's a lot of things in law right now. So even though you'd want to do it, it's going to be a hard thing to do, like a massive, tipping the thing upside down. They're going to nibble at the edges until they realize that, they're going to need congressional support to make some major fundamental changes that are in law. So, but again, back to emergency managers, don't get wrapped up about what's happening in Washington, D.C. Be good at the fundamentals. I know a lot of local emergency managers and state emergency managers rely on Homeland Security grants and EMPG grants. I think all that is all turned back on right now. The secretary just sent a memo out to FEMA administrators and employees that they're going to start rehiring core employees. They're going to open up EMI to include the fire academy. And I say EMI both in Emmitsburg and in Anniston, CDP. Like all that is going to be turned back on. So hopefully we all get back to center a little bit. But again, I think so this is uncertainty. So, because we rely on EMPG and Homeland Security grants, I would say like you got to preserve your resources, right? Maybe you're not going to hire any new employees until you have some certainty. Maybe you're not going to take on any major projects or initiatives. Maybe you're just going to kind of hold pat until something holds out because you want to preserve your ability to respond, because that's the next thing that's going to happen. So again, be smart about the future. Be measured in what you do, but be ready to go because the community will demand it.
I love that. That's a mic drop moment. If anybody wants to listen to Pete and learn more from Pete, one of my great mentors and great friends, you got to go to Pete's website, FEMAPete.com. And seriously, like I said, he just revamped it. I've seen him talk in person about this stuff. We're hearing it from you again. And I believe people also can schedule even a 30-minute one-on-one session with you potentially. So, be cool. Go to FEMAPete.com, and we'll see you for the next one. Thanks again for Pete for coming on. Peace.
Thanks, John. Good to see everybody. Thank you.